coming from New Orleans, coming into our city, and I'm sure you and your wife made some decisions looking at the city. So, I mean, how do you feel about what the president had to say?
It was irresponsible. Excuse me. It was irresponsible. It was unprofessional. It was hurtful. It was shameful. It was degrading, and it was insulting to the people of Baltimore. And when I found out about it after the first few minutes, I was actually on the phone with other leaders in the city, and as you know, I prepared a response as well. It's not my first time making a response for something the president has said. I did that once before, but I was part of a response. And you know, it's shameful and hurtful, unprofessional, and that should not happen from the leader of the free world.
Commissioner, I was noticing this morning that the statement was put out. The Baltimore police let 76 unresolved misconduct cases expire. What comment on that?
That is absolutely unnecessary. That is something that has been happening for a long time in our Public Integrity Bureau, formerly known as Internal Affairs. But we have a person who we've identified. A hire is imminent. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll probably be announcing a new hire to lead that, to help us transform that part of our police department so that we can really be accountable to our community by holding ourselves accountable and being transparent about it. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I spent a number of years in my previous department doing that very work, so I understand the value and the importance of being really responsible and accountable in those internal investigations, and that has to be corrected. And those are things that happened over the past couple of years.
There's, I think, a lot of good credit coming your way about what you are capable of getting done, but it's going to take some time to go deep down inside.
Well, it will take time, and restructuring and making sure we have absolutely competent and qualified people conducting these internal investigations will help us to put ourselves in a position so that never happens again. How do we find people who still exist? People ask that question all the time. Well, you know, if there are no more criminal cases going forward where either the state's attorney or the U.S. attorney are prosecuting anybody, and there are no more internal affairs cases, then we have to create the culture where people who would have been a part of that never do that kind of thing again. And if they do, the department has the ability to have the appropriate response to it, to hold them accountable. And when we identify people who are doing bad things and committing bad acts, we have the appropriate response, and then we have the ability to have the type of investigations to remove them from service. We just have to find out about it. When it comes to drug dealing, when it comes to people who are actually committing crimes, well, there's a lot we can do. There's a lot that we actually do, both with uniform and with undercover operations and surveillance operations, and with our state and federal partners. But sometimes when people are just standing there not committing a crime, it begins to be difficult to move them if they're not committing a crime, and if the only thing they're doing is just standing there. And certainly, well, I was getting to that point. If they're laundering in front of a business and it is the criminal laundering, we can take action on that. But then it becomes a balance of resources. How do we use those officers to go deal with all the violent things that are happening, and then how do we stop doing that to go kind of deal with the laundering issues? And then it begins a balancing of the allocation of resources and how we do both. And do we have enough to do both? And can we do both successfully? And it becomes a little bit of a challenge trying to do that. And so yes, laundering does become a crime. But then here's the thing, when you asked about the consent decree, when the officers approach, if the person decides to dig in and say, I'm not going anywhere, then it becomes, well, if you're not, then I have to put my hands on you to use force to physically make you move, and then we got a use of force over something as simple as laundering. And then it becomes that fine line. And so that's the gray area where we find ourselves with the consent decree. Teaching our officers how to make that approach and how to do it, and then what to do when people decide they're not going to listen to the police, they're going to stay there, and then force the police to physically remove them. And then we get accused of using force over something simple as laundering. And so we have to balance that and kind of really retrain our team how to do that.